His Majesty has entered the new millennium, but just like in any new era, there are some things that doesn't seem to change. I'm Demetrius, and welcome to the Brumakian podcast. This is an episodic review series where I'm going to review anything, but not everything. That includes monster movies, both big and small, anime, and video games. This week, it's Godzilla 2000. Both versions. So, let's take it back to 1998. TriStar released their long-awaited adaptation of Godzilla. Needless to say, the reaction was more nuclear than the studio ever thought it would be. Audiences and critics didn't like it. In fact, they hated it. And hated on it some more. And to bring it on home, they fucking hated it. But the bright side is that it didn't ruin the franchise, but it made it more viewable in the public eye in some way. And it somehow continued the franchise. And here is one of its results. Okay, there isn't that much to cover in terms of background for this film, so this is going to be much more shorter than usual. Let's get this out of the way. Toho didn't decide to create a response to TriStar's adaptation. When the film premiered in Japan and when a negative reception came back, the studio defended it fiercely. I mentioned in my 98 review that Haruo Nakajima and Kenpachiro Satsuma, the guys who played Godzilla, detested the film straight from the get-go. The reason why they were able to do that is because those two didn't work for Toho. Anyhow, once the film finished its theatrical run in Japan, Toho made a profit from it. And that's when they decided to make their own film. Most of the behind-the-scenes crew, including Takeo Okura, the director, returned for this film. Akira Ifukube didn't return, so instead, Takayuki Hattori returned to compose the film. For the man who's going to be playing Godzilla, that will be Mr. Tsutomu Kitagawa, I hope I said that right, playing the role of His Majesty. Godzilla 2000 Millennium premiered in Japan on December 11th, 1999. While it did sold over 2 million tickets, the reaction to the film was terrible. People, even the people who make this film, didn't like it. Maybe Toho's fortune might change when the film premieres in the West. The studio sold distribution rights to Sony, who got a team together who knew what the fuck they were doing, re-edited and released it in theaters, American theaters rather, on August 18th, 2000. And it didn't do so well. But it did get mixed to positive reviews this time around. Now, with all of that out of the way, here is the film's synopsis according to IMDb. Omega?
An independent group of researchers actively track Godzilla as a giant meteor is discovered. The mysterious rock begins to levitate as its true intentions for the world and Godzilla are revealed.
Note that in the past, I only reviewed the American version. Well, for this review, I'm doing both versions. With that said, let's start with Japan first. I can see the theme that's going on here. It's the new millennium and everyone believed that time would just reset back to 1900 and all of the computers would shut down once it hits 2000. Which is stupid, but I guess some people didn't have a grasp of the common sense page, to which it says, you think with your head instead of your ass. I can also see why the Japanese got the shit end of the stick. Right from the start, I realized it was going to be like the original Star Wars from 1977. For those who don't know, there was a rough cut of that film in which some scenes would break away from the action. In this film, it happens the same way with the lighthouse sequence. But it wasn't just that, but after that scene and throughout the film, there were continuity errors that were easily noticeable, like when the main trio are trying to escape Godzilla through the tunnel, even though the imbecile didn't think not to flash the camera in the Monster King's face. Another issue that I have with the Japanese version is that scenes tend to go far too long. For example, the JSDF attack on Godzilla. And don't get me started on the final battle. Sure, its choreography is alright, but the pacing is way too slow. That may have something to do with there being less sound. Yes, there is a very noticeable lack of sound design, or sound design that doesn't sound punchier. I know that the Japanese creators at the time weren't given enough time, but come on. While the acting from the cast is superb, I have to ask, why were there some lines that left me scratching my head? Sure, the body language gives us an idea of what they are thinking, but the dialogue doesn't match that. Now, let's switch over to the US version. I could tell that the people behind this version knew what the hell they were doing. If you listen to the audio commentary, highly recommend, it's very evident of that. The continuity errors are fixed, the sound design is much punchier and booming, and the English dialogue matches what the characters are thinking, even though there are some lines in it that are very corny. Godzilla looks beautiful, although his color scheme is not ideal for his design. His roars are completely different, but not too much. Some of the roars from the 98 film are in the US version, but I don't mind at all. Orca's design is a bit meh. The roar in the Japanese version is the reused Cretaceous Ghidorah roar. In other words, it sounds like a dying whale. The roars in the US version sounds much more menacing and unnerving at times. And we can all joke about the UFO looking like a bicycle seat. We've been there. The music in the Japanese version is meh, but at least Hattori is getting better. In the US version, his music is enhanced by J. Peters Robertson's own original music, which is so damn good. I wish these two became a duo. Overall, Godzilla 2000 is an enjoyable film in the end. The Japanese version leaves a lot to be desired, and I wish those issues were resolved. If it was like the US version, and if the higher-ups would have some fucking patience in their goddamn life, it would have been as enjoyable over there as it is over here. But as of now, all I can say is watch the US version if you can. You'll thank me later. So, His Majesty has returned, and we all hope that there will be a sequel to this film, but for some ungodly reason, Toho decided to make an anthology series. Well, let's see how that goes. Until then, thank you all for watching/listening. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel for more of the Brumakian podcast. While you're at it, check out my other content. Your support makes a difference. This has been Demetrius signing off, and hail to the king.